Hello everyone, this is Many Ninja speaking. For today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Beast Deities BD024 Narasimha figure, aka a legally distinct take on Super Saiyan 3 Son-Goku from both the Z era as well as Super era. Now, for those that are not familiar how Beast Deities works, this is a slightly older release, I must admit. I have been meaning to get to this for a little bit. The way this tend to works, everything shows up in a few separate boxes, with the main body box having the base figure itself, as well as its various hands and a generic head or two. What you can see here is that same tiger line that they use on all the previous releases of the same body type, and the separate boxes, which are the bookmarks and pen holder, quote unquote, show all the character unique stuff, namely the faceplates, the giant hairpiece, as well as a small halo, which was kind of put loosely in the box rather than being tucked in anywhere. Now, looking at the main body, if this looks incredibly familiar to you if you've watched my last video, it's with good reason. A lot of the same overall base bodies that they tend to use for a lot of the releases there, where they have like this generic gi as well as the belt and thing, basically a Goku style body, they basically use all the same parts, which for the most part is a good thing because in terms of a solid body, aside from maybe some issues here or there with the butterfly joints, I feel in particular, not being able to have the perfect sense of reach because they keep getting caught up on the sleeves, is perfectly serviceable otherwise. So basically you have your standard 30 points of articulation, 30 plus, reasonable butterfly joints except for where they kind of get caught. Waist joint is actually much easier to work with on this particular toy than the last release, it's not as stiff. And legs, although they're a bit long and lanky, are perfectly serviceable, no real issues, and the joints all nice and tight and work just fine. So for a general body, we've got no issues here. And that kind of works because there is officially no 3.0 from Tamashii Nations in order to kind of compare to. So it's kind of got its own game between this and Martialist Forever from Demoniacal Fit / Possessed Horse. So it's nice that we have something functional. Now when we get the actual hair piece on there, plus the faceplates of course, while it has a very impressive stance on here, unfortunately, this is also where the problems with the figure kind of become pronounced. Now, as we can see, we have it on its stand on there, so let's do a quick height check for those that might be inquiring. As this figure is going to be standing, I believe, at roughly about a smidge over 6.5 inches tall. A little higher if you add the halo as part of the cap, more like 6 3/4. And the key word is stand, because you're not going to be able to do too much with this figure, otherwise, if you don't have an actual figure stand to go with it. And even then, the one I have here, which is kind of the original action stand, isn't going to cut the mustard. The issue, how big the hair is. Once again, it's nice that we have all this detail there, how it's actually incredibly sharp detailed, very articulated, broken up into 3 different parts, as I was saying earlier. At least I think I did. But the weight on that hair is just so massive, especially with the double ball joint that they have on the neck there. Kind of makes it completely unwieldy. You actually need a stand guaranteed to get this thing to even reliably stand up for a while, much less try to make any interesting poses. Now, briefly moving on to the accessories on there. Once again, this is an earlier release from Beast Deities, even as the re-release, so while it does have some nicer versions on the faces than what the original figure actually came with, including this interesting kind of confused, befuddled look, you aren't actually getting a ton with this particular toy. At least not compared to what we were talking about last time. It's those 3 faceplates, the generic animal hands, and a handful of other fairly standard Goku hands for the most part. Instrument mission ones, grappling one, open palm one, martial arts hands, and the 2 fists. So they kind of blew the budget on the hair, I'm afraid. Now those more familiar with the channel know that if one of my video run times is this short, it's seldom a good thing. That means usually I don't have a lot to say because not a lot of good is going on. Technically, that's only half true this time. The main body, entirely serviceable. Frankly, it's about the same one as I reviewed last time, so I don't need to say too much more. But the head is suffering from the same issue that every other big-haired Beast Deities release kind of has, being that it's just too top-heavy for its own good, and makes it unwieldy, and basically you absolutely need to stand in order to make the figure work. Unless you just want it literally standing, leaning forward the whole time. So that's a bit of a waste. Somehow that makes Raditz the only figure I've got where it's that top heavy and it still manages to stand on its own, but that's also because the body's much bigger. So, Alright, quick amendment on something before we wrap up today. Namely, turns out that 5K Toys still has a few of the Waghoba variants in stock, namely the Limit Breaker version of Goku here, as well as, strangely enough, the fighter-style clone Goku figure, still available on their sites. But just a brief reminder, if you're looking for this sort of thing, especially anything Beast Deities, you kind of have a limit on what you can kind of get, because with the studio disbanded, that means there are no additional prints or any new stock coming out on anything under the label, because legally they can't do it. So, on that note, we'll be covering 2 more Beast Deities things for the next video, kind of the near last of the line there, so we'll catch up next time. Catch you later.